So the Basecamp, these are called Fireside Chats, and we're going to bring up Lisa and Sarah. And we're just going to spend some time chatting. I told you guys that's okay. Do you want, well, I will, we could change it if you want to have a little something else up there. So, so we're going to do a little get to know you first, and I call this the life work. So we always like to hear about people's work, but we don't really know the life and world of them. So, so tell us a little bit about where you were born and raised. What was your first job that you did? And is Arizona it? Are you natives, or did you end up in Arizona?
I was actually born in Iowa, but I didn't even live in Iowa at the time. We moved to Illinois first and then bounced around from Iowa to Illinois to Nevada, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Wow. I think that was through high school. So I went to 13 different schools between kindergarten and 12th grade.
So does this have anything to do with Air Force or?
It's actually a witness protection program. No, I'm totally kidding. Everybody always thinks it's military, of course, so then I had to come up with another story just to kind of throw people off. But no, my dad just transferred jobs a lot. He was military background and was in the police force while we lived in the Midwest, and then ventured into private corrections. So he just got transferred around with his job, and we went along for the ride.
Great, wonderful.
I am born and raised in Mesa, Arizona, and a fifth generation of Mesa, Arizona. I have left a few times, but I always end up coming back. Yeah.
Where did you go to when you left?
We spent 2 years on the Big Island of Hawaii, and then we spent a year in Johannesburg in South Africa. Yeah, so when we leave. Yeah. But then we always come right back. Yeah.
Great, okay. Yeah. So what about, what was your first career that you had?
Career or job?
Job, whatever that was.
I was the proud maker of Hawaiian shaved ice in Nashville, Tennessee. And they also had limeade, lemonade, and I feel like something else, but it was in the mall food court.
Yeah, and I worked at the dry cleaners, the local dry cleaners.
In Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brave.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. How hot does it get there?
It's hot.
Yeah.
But through college then so that was high school. I then moved to Miami for undergraduate, and I worked for Royal Caribbean, which was really great. My friends and family cruised for $15 a day, so we did lots of traveling when I was in school. And then speech pathology. I moved here to Arizona State was where I did my graduate program, and worked here for a while, and then also lived in Tennessee, the Caribbean, California, and then made it back here eventually.
So are you here to stay now?
Well, maybe for a while.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a cool place, and I like how the people from last month talked about how Phoenix, is hopefully going to become a new hub for things, and so we hope that,
Well, you're making that happen.
Yeah.
Bringing your app forward. So it's awesome. So how did you two decide to partner together and do this, co-founding piece together? Tell us a little bit, first of all, about the app itself, SLP app. How many people are on the app? How is it, helping these SLPs? And SLP is speech language pathologist. I said I had to say that really clear. So
the app that we've developed is specifically for school-based SLPs. We wanted to try to find a way to be able to assess a student's abilities so that we could find out exactly what their strengths and needs were. So unlike a teacher who can give a math test and get kind of the level of where that child's performing with their math or their English curriculum, there's nothing really like that for language. And so we developed a series of assessments, and then once you have that data, then you can figure out what goals you're going to be targeting for a school year period, and then there's some progress monitoring tools that allow you to measure the progress so that you can to see if those children are progressing like they should. So the app we launched about 1.5 years ago.
We did it a long time ago.
Yeah, we did it a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but I think we've got about 5,000 people using the app, and that nationally, even internationally too. And that happened pretty quickly, I think, of people signing up.
Okay, but so let's find out 1.5 years ago. So first of all, let's back up and say, how long did it take you to go through the process of, oh, we should do this, and now let's get this app built? I mean, where was your starting point with all of this?
Well, I think the way we even met is we both work in Mesa Public Schools, and so my role in the district is to provide support to all of the speech pathologists in the district. So that's how Sarah and I initially met, and I think even when we go through initial training, I always reach out after people go through kind of their series of procedural trainings of what's something you'd like to learn, and that's what brought me to Sarah's school, where you just get a little bit more one-on-one conversation. And even at that time, that was her first year working in Mesa, I was showing her this one program that's used in speech pathology, and I said, this is stuff that we do anyways. And it's this woman now, she speaks nationally, internationally, has a kit. Everybody talks about, this one tool that she made, and it was stuff that we were already doing. And so we just kind of talked a little bit about, oh, I kind of have ideas and you have ideas. Flash forward to the next year, our district was looking at maybe trying to provide some supports to the speech therapist in our school district. And I had reached out and just said, does anyone want to work on this with me? And Sarah ended up reaching out and said, sure, that sounds like something I'd totally be on board with. So as we actually were talking, we realized what a big thing it was. And well, I guess I should say, the first time I said, you do this, I do this, and then we'll meet in a month and we'll just kind of see where we're at. Well, a month goes by, and because you're just in the thick of working and doing your thing, neither of us got anything done. And so that led to our next conversation of, this will never get done while we're working full-time in our school positions. This is really a project that if we want to undertake this project, we need to look at what we can do to make it even the coolest it could ever be.
Yeah, and I think during that conversation too, I think met and talked about it a couple of times, but literally at that moment, both of us kind of just stopped and thought, why would we do this for this Mesa Public Schools? This is a huge project, a huge undertaking. We've really got something here. We're going to solve a huge problem, and so we should do something about this. And I think and we always joke about it, but it's real. Like, we could feel like a shift in energy. I think we got excited immediately. We got that confirmation that this is
this is idea.
Yeah.
But how did you get that? Did you reach out to so many? You had so many surveyed. You knew that this was needed.
No, we knew we needed it because we're working in the trenches. And I think when I had gone to college, I had some professors that had really convinced us of the ways we should be doing things, that best practice kind of things. But then you get in the trenches, and our jobs are tough. Our caseloads are high, and so I always knew I wasn't maybe doing the things the best I could.
And you feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Because we're speech pathologists, if you have any in your life, we're kind of type A personalities. And so we're overachievers, but then when you get into a situation where you're not doing your best, it's very, just that bad feeling.
Yeah, so you wanted to apply
so
this.
we started to ask questions like, why is there nothing out there like this? And is there something out there like this? And I think I'm really resourceful. So I think I would have found something if it existed, and it just really didn't. And so when we kind of came up with this idea, and we thought, we've really got something here. I think this could be a really great solution.
But then we need to tell them about what our first steps was we decided that this is a project, again, outside of work that we want to start working on. So we decided, well, where will we work? Where does it make sense? And Sarah says, I have this craft room in my house. So why don't you meet, we could meet maybe like on Fridays. That will be where we start to develop some of this content. So the first Friday comes along, and I'm texting her. I'm like, so, Friday, we're still on? She's like, yeah, of course. Can't wait to see you.
Oh, wait, but back up. She is super organized, and she made us plan out every Friday date. We were going to work on this for like 6 months out. So we already had it on the calendar for we are meeting at this time.
So you made it real. You put it on the calendar.
Yeah, we put it on the
this
calendar,
is okay.
but I still had hope it wasn't going to actually happen.
The backstory is that every week for several months, Sarah would hope I would cancel. And so I think the moral of the story is, I think some people are able to have ideas and act on them alone, but we have always found a lot of value in working together because we have this common goal, and when there are things that she struggles with, I kind of pushed her and vice versa. And that's been the story from how we started to where actually we're at right now.
So still doing your day jobs and meeting every Friday, then at what point did you need funding to help get things accomplished, to get the app built, all of these types of things?
So that was probably around May, I think, and we had enough money to do the little things. Like we were so proud of ourselves when we filed the LLC.
Which we found out we could have done through the state of Arizona for about $35, but we paid LegalZoom about $400. So that was
But we were still really proud of ourselves.
Really bright.
Yeah. And then we started asking questions and looking into how are we going to get this money? We do not have an inheritance or rich family that was going to donate money to us. And so then we started to kind of look around for some options and asked some different people. And then somebody had hooked us up or told us about SCORE. I think it was her in-laws. So do you know what SCORE is?
Yep, sure do, but I don't know that everybody knows what SCORE is here.
Yeah, so it's retired execs, and they donate their time, and they will help you and answer questions. And so we went and met with them, and they told us that we needed to have a business plan and kind of helped us work through what that business plan would look like.
And that's all free. They do all that for free, which is awesome.
And they were great. His name was Tom. We still love Tom.
And I think actually what was so invaluable about that is we are speech pathologists. We are not entrepreneurs in our head. We really still identify even to this day as speech pathologists. And so when we always tell our story and we say that, people are like, but you are an entrepreneur. And we're like, yeah, but we're really kind of more a speech pathologist and just sort of landed into the business side of things.
Right, but I mean, look at WebPT. WebPT is a physical therapy app built by a physical therapist who didn't necessarily want to become a big, huge company, right? For that, she was a physical therapist. So similar kind of thing, right? I mean, so you guys were solving a problem for yourselves really at first.
And really, even the funding part, I think we were a little, many things we were very naive about and still continue to see where, we joke about that the more that we are in this and the more that we know, the more we realize we don't know. But even in the beginning, when we were talking about just our idea, we thought, oh, let's build an app. We'll do an iOS app. And then,
how much could that cost?
Yeah, it's not like a couple thousand? Yeah. No big deal. We can make that happen. So then somebody that we had talked to had said, well, really that will probably cost you about $20,000. You might want to think about doing a web-based app that might be a little bit less expensive. And then we met Paul, and we found it didn't necessarily translate into less of an expense for us, but it made more sense in the big scheme of things that we didn't want to be connected just to the Apple brand or just that one platform, because the way that we ended up building it is accessible to anyone who has access to the internet.
So, okay, so let's talk about that process of web app versus mobile app versus. So, Get Boundless is Paul's business. I'm curious how you went about thinking about searching for this person, because there's a lot of places out there, right? You can stumble upon a lot, but you also have to make sure these people know what they're doing, how they're coding, all of this.
Well, and that's the thing too, is when the idea came to us, and we actually decided to commit and act upon it, things just fell into place. And I think we're pretty instinctual, and I think we go with our gut a lot. And so that part was the hardest, I think, of all. In fact, it wasn't even Google searching the right thing. I was looking, for website, and they kept taking me to people who make web pages. And so I'm talking to this one guy, and trying to, pitch him this idea. And he's like, I don't even make web apps.
You did landing pages, basically.
I do a
the
landing
graphic,
page.
right.
You don't even know who you're talking to. And I'm like, no, I have no idea how to go about doing this. And so he connected us with the company. And that company wouldn't meet us in person, for one. And two, once I kind of told him what our idea was, he was like, yeah, it's too small. We only do projects that are $100,000 or more. So he connected us with another person, and we actually set up an appointment to meet with him. And right before we did the meeting, I did one more Google search, and Boundless came up at the top. And so I'm not sure what I changed on my keyword. I wish I would remember, but it hadn't come up yet. And I went onto the web page, and the thing that struck us the most was that he had spelled out, there was a question and answer, and he had spelled out exactly what the process would look like, what we would be paying, what we would get for that. And so, here I had been looking around and around in circles and not getting any information. We really had, like we said, we thought 20 grand was going to be what a web app would cost. So that was kind of the first time. And so then we reached out to him, and he was the first person who would meet with us in person. Everybody else wanted to do phone calls. Yeah. And, you know, and I get that. Nobody wants their time wasted, and we clearly don't know what we're talking about at this point. So,
But that was, I think we are, again, in a people field, and we use our instincts. And I think as women in general, women are pretty in tune with those kinds of feelings. So we met Paul, and the birds sang. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it just felt right. And so I think that's really been, many of our decisions have always just kind of felt right.
But at that point, you would come to the table with your idea, maybe some mock-ups, a business
yes, we
plan.
have some mock-ups, and I would love to show those
And
to you.
Paul likes to mock us for our mock-ups. He just did that a couple weeks ago.
If we got what we asked for, it would have been a red toolbox with things popping out of the top. Like, we had some mock-ups, we had some big ideas. But
Well, and I think that's part of thinking about even that time of choosing who we were going to work with. Paul met with us, it felt good. At that same time, I think that was around like a Tuesday, we had an appointment with another company that Friday. And we had looked at their website, and basically they had some blog post on there, and I'll never forget this. It basically said that they had shifted their whole philosophy and team members recently, and that they were just pretty tired of dealing with small business, and that they felt like there was too much consulting and too much hand holding, and wrote this in a blog post. But then in another page had that they would still take your business. And I thought, why? You know, that's an inside thought, maybe, if you're trying to attract business. And so we had talked about, after we met Paul, like, should we still, is it responsible still just to meet with someone else that would maybe be in our budget and would be willing to work with us? And we just thought about it, and we said, no, it already doesn't feel right. I don't need to talk myself into why that company might work for us when this feels right and feels like the direction we need to go in. And I think the huge part of all of that too is that we trusted who we were working with. And this is a leap of faith. You have to have that trust, and you have to have people that will tell you that maybe that's not such a good idea. Because like Sarah was saying, there were certain ideas that we had that I think there are some companies that will just take your money and give you exactly what you ask for. And that was not what we needed. We had a lot of good ideas, but they definitely needed to be shaped and honed. And we were really excited. Since our initial launch, we have done some updates, and we keep adding on, but we were proud of the product that we put out immediately.
Good. And does it just take the two of you to manage the app right now, or do you have someone who's helping? Because if someone needs something and you're actually working during the day, it's just the two of you. Yeah. So haven't added anybody to support or anything. Do you have like Zendesk or something that handles
We
support?
have hired my daughter, Haley. My daughters are sitting up front here, and at one point she was helping to manage some of the email lists and things like that were, throughout this process, we have both worked full time. So, and have families, and amazing families that I will say, not just our families that are our immediate family, but like my parents have been amazing support as well. And so trying to juggle how to keep moving the business forward when we can only work set hours, we've had to be really creative, and it's involved a lot of, I think, even support from our families, in the sense of when we first even decided to do this, we both went to our families and said, this is not just us. We need you as a part of this. I mean, we need, even my children, I said, there are going to be a lot of late nights, and I need you to be okay with this and be supportive. And my family's been amazing. I know your family's been amazing as well throughout this entire process.
Well, they're here tonight, so clearly they're supportive of everything, so it's awesome. So when you got with Paul, did you feel like you were, okay, how long was that time? You had worked like 7 months to get to that point before you met with him.
Yes, because we were needing to create content.
Okay.
And so we wanted to make sure that we had something when we actually got ready to the point of development, that we had something. So we had been working on content up until that point, so about 7 months.
And content meaning, tell us what that means.
So all of the tests that are built into our app, we had to create all of that, yeah.
Okay, so that's the brains of how this app kind of operates, right? With what you've built into it. So you meet with Paul. What is his first thing? Obviously, you didn't like your mock-ups, but what else was the first thing?
I would say one of the first questions that he asked, though, which I thought was really interesting, was, why are you doing this? And we go
why
in,
do you want to start a
right, why do
business?
you want to start a business? And we just immediately kind of go into, well, there's this problem and we have this solution and this is this great idea. And he goes, no. Why do you want to go into business? And so even having that kind of thought process of, his point being, this is hard. This is not going to be, and I think maybe part of his perspective too is I think people think they're just going to build an app. And even at one point we felt like that, like all the hard work is the content and the development, and you really pour yourself into that. And we have found that the hardest work has been that was the easy stuff. Like the hardest work has been then how do you grow your business? How do you brand your business? How do you find your customers? So that's been the hard stuff. And I thought that was really interesting that when he met us, I kind of felt like he was interviewing us too. Like, is this a client that will be a good fit for us?
Yeah, so that's exactly like this platform where they say, okay, at what point do you need leadership? At what point do you grow? At what, those stages, right? It really, truly, it is a business that you're building. It's not necessarily an app you're building, right? So that's awesome. So let's talk about going through that process. So how long does it take to get that app accomplished? What's the timeline?
Well, and I think originally we have to talk about too, like funding, because we had kind of touched upon that as far as I know everybody's in a different spot. I love that statistic that you put up there that only 6% of women are funded for these ideas. And that was something that for us was very difficult in the beginning. And you might want to tell this part about Sarah's grandpa is the one that kind of gave us our first little funding point, because even in talking to Paul at that time, he said, there are no loans, there are no really venture capitalists, that funding is not there, that most people that want to start up, they're using personal funds. You're either borrowing from family, you're using credit cards, you're using whatever it is that you have to get started. So I think that right there, you're making this commitment of, do I really believe in this idea? And that is a very scary place to be in.
Yeah, and we even at SCORE, that was one of the things we hoped they would help us with too, is certainly there's got to be some small business loan or something that we can get. And I think there was somebody here last month who helps with small business loans, but we didn't really find that resource. And so, we'd met with Paul, we knew what kind of money we were going to need to come up with. And so I'd met with my grandpa, who owns a business and is a business starter and had created a very successful business for himself and came from nothing. And so I said, Grandpa, I just need advice from you. Like, what's my best bet? How do we go into debt for this? Do we use all of our credit cards? Do I take out my life insurance, or do I, what should we do? I need some recommendations so we don't go into business, too foolishly. And so he gave me some ideas, and then I think we were working that day, and about 6 hours later he called and he said, Sarah, and he's 92, by the way, Sarah, I'd like to give you a loan. I will give you $6,000 and you will write up a loan agreement, and I want 5% interest, and I want quarterly payments this is what the loan's going to look like, but I will give you your first loan. And so I hung up the phone, and we thought, we can do this. It was just kind of that Kickstarter we needed.
Of somebody believing in us other than ourselves.
Yeah.
Had you ever heard about Indiegogo or Kickstarter and said we should put this out there?
We talked about Kickstarter. We talked about doing some other kind of, group fundraising things on Facebook. We reached out to friends on Facebook, like, hey, we have this cool project. Does anybody want to help us? And yeah, I think there was some other.
And I think I actually even had started, I don't know if it was a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe or one of those kind of things. And I had my best friend from high school was the only one who donated money. And it was like $50 or something. But even that, I thought, oh my gosh, like this is where, again, you have these ideas of maybe that can work. And I think that can work for some people, but that's not going to work for all people. And so we really had to think about, okay, we have this $6,050. And what are our next steps? What can we each bring to the table? And this is not that this will be right for everyone, but we really felt this is an all-in kind of situation. And what is the worst that can happen? And think the payoff of, we really do believe in what we're doing. And so I know what I brought to the table was credit. I mean, that is what I had a really great credit. And I used all of my credit to put into the business.
Yeah, and I borrowed from 401ks. We did some other things too. And so that's what we've talked about. Like, do we recommend going into severe debt to start a business? no, but it was really our only option at the time, and we were going to build this app. So we scrimped and saved and did whatever we could to come up with the money.
How quickly did you have someone on the app paying you and making money?
Within a week.
Well,
The first week,
yeah,
though.
it took about, we had a lot of signups initially for the trial version, and it took only a week before our first one. But I mean, you're talking like $19 for the monthly subscription, So it was
But
like,
we have that hanging up in our office right now because that is like our first dollar bill.
Yeah.
It's that first subscription receipt. And, I think when we launched, we didn't know what to expect because our market is very niche. We are speech pathologists. We had done a little bit of research as part of that business plan through SCORE of who is our target audience. And even in the world of speech pathology, it was school speech pathologists, which in the entire country is about 75,000 people. So we are trying, and we thought, man, if we can even get 10% of these 75,000 people. And so we thought, even with that could be a really good business model that would work for us if we got 10%. But we thought, how do you market? How do you market such a niche market? And so we did end up using social media. And I think that's where our first customer came from, is just social media. And we have really been a grassroots kind of marketing situation. Our whole focus has been wanting people to love it so much that they tell their friends about it, or they tell their school district about it and get funding through there. But we have not.
Yeah, you haven't put a sales force out there to say, let's go after this and get it out to everybody.
Well, we always joke about our different roles. Sales, she's a lawyer at times, we're accountants, we're whatever. Like, this is it. This is like the whole team right here.
But so it was slow. I will say that first couple of months, when we're starting, this is launching in February or January, at the end of a school year. And so it was slow. At first, we did not have a lot of conversions that first half of the school year. And so then we worked hard that summer and did some things to get our names out there a little bit more and started going to conferences and things like that.
And you said you adjusted it, you've changed it and added things. Do you keep going back to Paul to do the next level? Is that what you're doing? So your 6,000 hasn't covered everything. You have to keep kind of digging in a little.
6,000 didn't cover that at all. Yeah.
So you've had to keep, like you said, you kept putting in your own funding to keep that going and keep that spinning.
Yeah. So the first app package, and that's the thing I was telling you that is on Paul's website that was so cool, is we knew what the package was going to cost and what that was going to give us, and that gave us a web app. And like Lisa said, one we were proud of. But then since then, we've continued to build and add to it, and we've been able to do that now with the profits that we're making on the app.
And now you have a pretty good following that you probably can test things with. Do you use that as your test?
Yeah, and that was one thing Paul had recommended pretty early on, is even though we kept saying, well, we know our market. We don't need to do market research. We are the market, No, you're going to need to reach out to other people and see what they're interested in. And so we had some focus groups and did a lot of polling and stuff initially to see what people wanted,
And still do. I think we use even like a Facebook poll of, we want, we're looking at this, what do you think? Or we'll use our existing database of signups, so the 5,000 people. We have some that are more signups that are still just on the free trial. We have some that are actual subscribers that are paying for it, but we use them for input. We use Google Forms, super easy to create, and they give you a lot of good data.
Good. And so, but you keep your day job, you're staying with what you're doing.
We have 6 more work days of our day job. Wait a minute, high five.
And then you're done, you're not going to be doing anymore?
We are going full-time SLP Toolkit. This is my kids are clapping because they'll actually see me again, I think.
That's awesome. Wonderful for both of you. That's so cool. So you are going to be calling yourselves entrepreneurs at that point, correct?
I guess, yes. We will get comfortable with that, yeah.
Yeah, innovative entrepreneurs. It's awesome. So with that, then, I've also seen your blog posts, and you guys have a lot of fun together.
Yes, and I think that's what kind of sets us apart too, and that's been interesting. And that's where we are going to need you, and for branding purposes, because like Lisa said, it's a very niche market, and so we knew that we were going to have a huge audience on social media. But anybody that's kind of in our realm of business, they're mostly bloggers who produce materials, and they're individuals, and they can be themselves and individuals. Well, we were a company, and we wanted to make sure we stayed a business, and so at first, we were really behind the scenes, and everything we were putting out was SLP Toolkit, and not really showing a lot of our personality and that side of us. And it did not go well. Nobody wants to see that. That just wasn't what our market was interested in seeing. And so we have gotten over the last probably year very comfortable with showing more about ourselves and our fun side, and they relate to that. That's what they want to see. And so we use that to kind of get our audience to know who we are, and then balance that with still being professional.
And somebody had recommended to us too is that you have to kind of think of who's your avatar, who's your person that you are speaking to in all of these social media posts. So we kind of mapped out who would our user be, who do we think our person is, and we tailor our posts to speak directly to that person. And I think that's a part of too with our humor and our spin on things. We do have a lot, we work hard, but we have a lot of fun together. And I think that does come through in a lot of our posts. And we always say, she's the she to my nanigans. And people relate to that though. And they don't want to just get that sales pitch with every post that we do.
And the age group and the makeup of the people that are actually on the platform, female?
Almost all female. Yeah. There's 2 male speech pathologists in the world. No, but it's a very small percentage. So yes, mostly female. And the age range and it's pretty great. We've got some really seasoned SLPs who've been in this field for a long time, who are close to retirement using it. And then we've got brand new, grads who, so big range.
And that was part of when we were even thinking of development. We told Paul one of the primary things that we needed was it had to be user-friendly, because we knew there would be that age span, and there would be people with different technological kinds of backgrounds and experience and comfortability, and we didn't ever want that to be a barrier for them to access and use it. And so we said, whatever it is, it has to be so easy that somebody can just log in and figure it out.
So do they use it throughout their whole day? Is that what happens? They log into it and they're using it with every student that's happening with them?
Yeah, I don't know if they're using it all day long, but they're using it for when they need to develop this treatment plan for their students. And so they're doing that with their whole caseload, yeah.
Awesome. So I definitely think that you have an opportunity with the whole culture side of it. I think the two of you are really fun. And I was the first one who said, hey, I finally found your blog and I saw your about, and get that over on the homepage, because it really, people, 80% go to your about page, and they don't even know what you're selling them yet. They want to know who you are. So I think that you both will have a huge opportunity with that, because you have that nailed as far as being fun. So tell me about your growth plans. Clearly you're in 6 more days. Now, are you going back to SCORE to figure out what's the next level of business plan, or are you just kind of, how are you taking this next step?
We're actually going to Pamela Slim.
Oh, awesome.
So
Good
we
for
are
you.
going to do some consulting with her. She actually is almost our neighbor in our office in downtown Mesa.
Oh, smart.
So we had heard about her and actually set up a meeting, just a getting to know you meeting, and we determined that it couldn't have been more perfect timing. I don't think we could have used the coaching and consulting as much when we were first starting to the level that I think she will provide us, because that's what we talked about, is that really this next stage for us is all of the stuff that we always have these great ideas, and we always have we should do this and we need to do this, and things will get started, but because of our day jobs, it just didn't always happen. So she's going to help us do some really clear planning that I think is perfect timing for us.
Smart. Good for you. That's awesome. I don't know if you guys all know Pamela Slim, but you definitely need to research her. Okay, so let's talk about kind of clearly fit to market. I don't know, you have to go over. You've got the app, you're moving forward with everything. Let's just find out, do you even have an exit strategy? This is something that I was told, that's the first thing people are going to ask you is, what's your exit strategy? Rather than, where are you going to go from here and build the business?
It was like one of the first questions we thought, what would we do if somebody, wanted to buy it? Right. And we said, we're not selling this. Like, this thing is going to be a huge, the potential and what we can do right now it's a very specific thing, but it will continue to grow as we can expand it into different areas, such as medical and
different therapy fields,
different therapists, and yeah.
And we envision for ourselves a corporation. This is part of the struggle, and I don't know if this is, again, because we're women or even some of our peers sometimes, it's, oh, you have that cute little app. That's almost the feedback that we get. And we sit there and we talk to each other and we think, this is not a cute little app. This is blood, this is sweat, this is tears, this is a business, and it's going to be huge. And neither of us doubt that. And when you kind of get these sort of people that will kind of downplay that, and we also, I think the other kind of aha that we saw is when we first launched, we felt almost embarrassed about it. And not embarrassed about our product, but the fact that we were still working full time, and we have people in our field that thought, well, you should just make that and give it away for free, because we work in public education. So it was just like why would you charge people for that? And so we were a little bit afraid for a while to even acknowledge that this is what we were doing. And then we were really hit by two sets of people professionally. We had people that said, this is amazing, you guys are rocking it, this is an amazing product. And then you had other people that were just like, oh, like, you're gonna leave us, and maybe that's something I wanted to do and I never did it. So it was a little bit of a resentment kind of feeling, which is really odd for us. But after a while, I think our confidence grew, and we always believed in what we were doing, but it was almost, I don't know if you feel the same way, I almost felt ashamed for a while, which is a really weird...
I just didn't know if people would really, I don't think people understood what we were doing. Right. Exactly. You know, we're not, like Lisa said, we're speech pathologists. We are not business starters. We're not entrepreneurs.
Because maybe you were describing it that way too.
Yeah, and I downplayed it.
Yeah.
I think I even questioned, you know, can we really do this? Is anybody going to take us seriously?
And we're people pleasers. I mean, I think in our field too, we work with people, we connect with people, and the thought of the people that weren't totally supportive of it, from people in our field was really difficult.
So let's go back, instead of exit strategy, let's talk about growth and leadership, right? So is it a point where you bring on a CTO? Is it, you know, do you think about these things, or do you just go and talk to Pam and say, where's our next step? Is that what you're going to do first? Is kind of, let's lay this out?
I think, we're finally, you know, just now getting to the point where we can actually start taking a paycheck and start paying ourselves. So, you know, are we ready to hire anybody? No. But that's the plan. The plan is definitely to get more people on board. And I remember somebody had told me pretty early on, too, you always want to hire people smarter than you are. And so we're looking for those people all the time, which is most people. And so we, you know, eventually it will get to the point where we have to grow that way. But right now, I think we're able to manage a lot of it right now.
It's been very natural. I think the whole progression of things has happened at a pace that we were able to manage. We talk a lot about timing and a lot about how, again, things just have sort of naturally felt right, and that has been our process from the beginning. We've gone with our instincts. There are certain points where we've known we needed to branch out to get more information, more knowledge, have more of a finite sort of plan in place, and we have done that as it's sort of just naturally occurred.
Good. And I know you have an office space, it sounds like, right? So you could leave the house and go to an office?
We can thank Grandpa for that too. He has a building down in Mason on Main Street, and we had to get rid of the craft room at some point. There's not great air conditioning, and there's dogs and children involved.
Great for conference calls.
Yeah, so we were able to get a little office space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah. So that's where you'll keep that, keep going there, keep it going each day.
Yeah, we work with our desks facing each other and stare at each other all day long. And we're still talking.
And so the next level sounds like you might take this structure and build it, like you said, for other disciplines, right?
Yeah, I think the idea is to really hone in what we have, make it really, really great, and then to figure out how we can expand.
So that's the question they always ask is kind of, how do you keep climbing through the hurdles? So this will be a different field because you won't have that regular day job happening, right? But now you're expected to have the platform paying you in a sense, right? And keep growing it.
I think we had always been sort of prepped. We keep referencing Paul because Paul has pretty much been our counselor and our advisor. Sometimes there were some tears involved, and we laugh about that. But he's always said, like, you have to go full time, and I'm like, well, that's great, Paul. Are you going to provide me insurance and give me a paycheck? Because it doesn't feel right now. I can't. I'm a single parent. I said, I don't have anyone to help support in that process. So I get that sense of urgency. That his point was that you're never really going to be all in and have that sense of urgency to make it happen until you're at a point where you're all in and it better happen, or you don't eat, you don't pay rent, things like that. And so we always knew at some point it did have to come to that point.
And they say on Women Who Start Up all the time, it's you have to put yourself in a discomfort place every day so you can keep growing and growing and growing from it. So
and this is a scary, I mean, it's scary from the perspective of, I'm a creature of, I like things that are sort of predictable, which is kind of funny because in business, nothing is predictable, but that was my one little sense of predictability. I knew I still had that paycheck. I knew I still had insurance. So I think when you come to that point in your life, that's where you really have to rely again on your support system. So again, I go back to my family has been amazing through this, and even if it's not family for you, it's finding your friends, finding even these supports that we didn't even know existed, the Women Who Start Up, finding your people that when you are struggling can help you persevere through that.
Yep.
It's about to get real.
It's about to get real. That's a good statement.
It's about to get real. But you know, what I think we needed this. And Paul was right. We did have to get to that point where we jumped in head first. We have had a cushion. We've had some insurance. And we've been still making it. I think we surprised Paul how hard we were able to do both jobs.
We actually have a vision board, and one of the tiles on there said, "Paul can suck it," because one time he told us all the things that we couldn't do. And so that went up there. And then Paul has a partner that he works with named Isaac. And after a while, we had to put, "And Isaac can suck it too," because they think that we can't rule the world. And we were like, what?
Yeah. So I think we've done okay. I think we have been able to manage as far as we have, and we've worked really, really hard and a lot of late nights. But this is the point where we've just got to jump in.
Done fantastically well. So I'm going to take it out to the group and see if we usually do the Q&A at this point. So I want to see if there's some questions that I know that you had said you came here because you wanted to kind of hear their story a little bit more. So I want to see if there's any questions that anybody wants to ask of them, and we'll just kind of open it to the group. See if we have a question. Yeah. Do you want to use the microphone, or are you good?
I would really love it.
Okay. All right.
How did you decide when to transition from full-time work to going all in? In other words, what was the criteria that led you to say now?
It wasn't so much criteria. I think there was a breaking point even personally where it had to feel like it made sense. Our business started making enough money to support itself, to support the development. And there was a point where I felt like I was not being my best at my day job because I was tired. I'm tired all the time. I mean, we were working full time, and we're working these nights, we're working weekends, and it was such a hard decision to get there, but then it was amazing. Like once the words came out and I submitted my resignation letter, and I did it back in February because I wanted to make sure they had plenty of time to find somebody to replace me in my position. But it just was like this weight was lifted because it was always kind of out there. But once there was just this finality of the decision is made and there's really no turning back, I knew both of us, we knew we made the best decision.
Are you guys more excited or nervous to be going full time?
A little bit of both.
So excited.
There we go, Sarah, right at you.
I can't even wait.
A little nervous. No,
Yeah.
but it is. It's again, we know that we're going into that realm of the unknown, and that's very kind of nerve-wracking, but really excited because going back to even what we had talked about before, that there were a lot of things that we know we should be doing and wanted to follow through on that you just don't because you're working late at night, or it's this idea that it doesn't have any structure yet and we didn't have the time to make it come to fruition. So we're really, the closer it's been to this point, the more excited we've become because we just think the world is ours now. Like we're gonna just hit it hard with 100% of what we have.
How would you explain to your child when you said
Well, I think for them too, we've always had to make choices, even from a monetary perspective, even before business stuff. I mean, I'm a single parent. I have been for many years. So I think for them, it's been more of, they've been on this journey with me, as have my parents, and they've been really supportive, and they're so proud. Like, it'll make me cry a little bit. They've been so good. They're so proud. And so I look at this as just like a role model. Follow your dreams, all that stuff that you say to your kids. I think they're seeing it live. So I'm proud of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So proud of you too, Mom.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question? Yeah?
So your specialty is in speech pathology, and now as you start to think about how you're going to roll that into other areas of the medical field, how do you approach areas that are not your specialty in developing content and tools that you're thinking about?
That's a good question, because even in our field, we have to know a lot of things. We always kind of joke, especially in the schools, we work with such a diverse caseload that we really are, you've got to be kind of a jack of all trades. Just the amount of things that we're dealing with just even the different disorders and disabilities, but also age ranges. And so we don't know everything about everything in our field now, but again, we know who to find out that does. And so we're constantly looking to talk to those experts in those areas. And so as we even continue to develop SLP Toolkit, we've got focus groups and different consultations that we do with people who are experts in those fields. And so when we go to do the medical SLP version of it, we'll be reaching out to the SLPs that are in that field and really working with them and consulting with people who know what they're doing.
And thinking of the variability too, because maybe how therapists work in this state is different than California, is different from New York, is different from other places. So really making sure that we are responsible with who we use, but then also just their knowledge base.
Yeah, the responsibility. I mean, that's a huge burden that we've kind of put on ourselves to make sure that we're putting out a good product that's best practice. And so I do think that we know our weaknesses, and we know how to find the people that can help us make this successful.
Has anybody else come up with anything that challenges your current app at all?
Not really, and that's funny. And I liked when you mentioned too that we're also secretive, because that's the other reason we didn't talk about the app in the first year.
Yeah.
Is because we just were convinced that there's 1,000 people out here who are going to make this app once they hear about it, right? And that was one thing Paul had told us is, one, you have the idea, but two, you have got the action, and you've got the money.
Mm-hmm. And you have the domain knowledge. I mean, that's huge in itself.
And so you've got to stop worrying that somebody's going to steal your app idea. And so even at this point, I think there's still some fear there. We even looked into patenting it at one point, which patenting technology is kind of an interesting thing. And so, even then when we started considering that, it's like, I think it really is just more of an incentive to make sure that what we do really well. And competition's okay, and so we need to let that go.
Competition means it's an idea worth, copying. Right. And somebody had said that to me a while, even before Paul. I know we always say Paul, but somebody had said that if there's something else that's similar out there, that's a good thing. That means there's a market for that. And that was such a weird kind of concept. We talked about that, and we're like, oh, I guess that does kind of make sense. That's why there's knockoffs even of designer dresses. I mean, there's a market for that, and so. Going back to what you said, we are just focused on, I think we are really in tune with our market, and we want to just make it the most amazing thing ever. And so if somebody else wants to try, bring it.
What's the hardest thing about edutech? What is the hardest thing about getting into edutech if someone else has an interest in it?
Districts do not have any money. No, not all of them. And that's one thing. We initially, when we were marketing this, it was directed towards an individual SLP. We wanted to make it affordable for them so that they could purchase it, because in the state of Arizona, there isn't a lot of funding. And so we didn't think districts would be buying it. We're wrong about that. Districts do have money, and there are ways to get the funding for it, and they will purchase it for their SLPs. And so even that has shifted our focus a little bit too. But I would say, especially and maybe not even just in Arizona, but technology is a huge initiative in education right now. So if you've got an idea, I think this is a great time to do it. I think they've got money even set aside specifically for technology.
But their expectations are different than the user's expectations. So that's where I think we've had a really good pulse, especially in the position that I have been holding in Mesa Public Schools. Is I listen to administrators, I listen to directors, I know what's important to them. But then as a speech pathologist, we know what's important to us, because I think a lot of technology gets thrust onto anyone working in education, where it's something that's meant to apply to a lot of different sorts of professionals and doesn't really meet, it might be something I have to use, my district is telling me I have to use it, and but it doesn't really speak to my specific role. And so I think that's even for us what was always so great, is that we talk to people at conventions all the time and we say, we are you are us. We develop this because we know what your needs are in this setting, and it's not some computer engineer somewhere just coding that thinks that is the coolest thing, that the technology is the coolest thing ever. For us, it's the technology had to be simple, and that's the platform for getting it to our users, but it's really about making the user experience it, have it be truly a solution to their problem.
Awesome. So what would you, I'm gonna close with the question we asked. I'll let you ask the question. Go ahead.
If you guys could go back to the beginning, is there anything you would have done differently, and why didn't you do that originally?
I don't know. Would we do anything differently?
I don't think so, and it kind of goes back to what we said, is that everything that we've done has just sort of felt like it's fallen into line and has been meant to be. So we've stumbled a few times and made mistakes along the way, but I think that's what's been so great, is that we've had each other to kind of figure it out. We've been resourceful, we've been problem solvers, and it's just, it's happened as it's been meant to happen.
Throughout your case studies and your market research, what was something surprising that you found from them that you might not have already known? Because I know that you knew the vision, you are the professionals, you knew what you're looking for. What was something that was kind of shocking from the data that you found that you incorporated?
Well, we had to do a lot of education that we didn't think we had to do. We really thought, like, here, we're giving you this awesome product, go forth and use it. And it hasn't been that clear. In fact, I don't even think just our app was innovative. I think even the idea behind some of the things we were doing was kind of an innovative approach to it. And so I think that was one thing that was kind of shocking to us, is the level of educating we were gonna have to do. And that's something we're still working on, is that even our website is gonna need we're going to continue to have to develop that, because I don't think our website does a very good job of actually telling what the application can do.
And I think it's because we have two sort of different customers. We have customers that are brand new to the field, and they really maybe are unsure of some of what best practice is or how that looks in the real world. And then we also have people who are veterans that I look at us as almost being like their metacognition of just having to think. They know this stuff, but they're so tired and overworked that they don't want to think about stuff. So I just want to pull it up and use it. So in looking at that, some of our customer base was a little bit different from what we thought maybe it would be. The fact that we really expected that all of our customers would come from individual users. We just went in with the assumption that school districts won't pay for it, they have no money. That's our experience in Arizona, but maybe not necessarily in Texas, which was our first big school district one of the districts in Texas that signed on. And so that was one of the things. And then even the education piece, what we've felt has been good about that is it's given us a platform to then go to some of like our national conventions or different state conventions and speak to some of these things that maybe we had taken for granted, and be able to share that message with others. So it's definitely been a journey.
Yes?
It seems like you guys are pretty primed to actually raise money given where you're at in business. Is that something that you guys are interested in doing? And then my second question was, how much ballpark did it end up costing you to build the first iteration of English market?
I don't know. How much did it cost us?
Well, the first
Oh,
release,
the first one?
the first release was 30,000. And but again, I think what we liked about the platform or the way that it was marketed through Boundless was that we knew what to expect. It was broken down into this part will be consultation, this part will be this stage of development. So there were no surprises, because I felt that if we would have gone with someone else, they'll just keep building and building, and then maybe we need to do this, and then we might have gotten up to 100,000 even before we had something that was viable. And so we had a good product with just even that, and we were the ones. And even I love, this is what's been so great of working with Boundless too, is that they always force us to prioritize, because we want this and this and this and this and this, and Paul helps us pump the brakes a little bit and really say that, is this worth it? Have you even done any research to say that everybody wants this? And so they've been very honest throughout the process of not just, saying, sure, we'll build that, and here's your bill. As far as the second question, as far as if we would be looking to get more funding, it is something that we talked about, and I'm not sure that we do want to do that right now.
We don't know, because we don't know about that. So even when we talk about all these different, fund the seeding and all of that stuff, that is such a concept test that we don't know.
Yeah. There's some great resources on the app here. One in particular, P2B, and she's amazing. She can walk you through a lot of things. So I think that is a question that you can't answer probably today, but you might quickly be saying, gosh, if we're going to grow this quickly, we might need that infusion. But
well, and the problem is, it's like that catch-22. To start a business, you need money. You need money to start a business. And it was so frustrating us when you're so excited about this idea and you want to run with it, but you can't. So, again, we don't know if we're in a place. I think there are pros and cons to both, and so we'll figure that out as we go.
So I'm going to ask the question: what does keep climbing mean to you? Those two words. Keep climbing.
Keep climbing.
I think just persevering. That
Yeah.
again, if you're climbing up a mountain, you're going to hit a rock, you're going to stumble, but be as prepared as you can. Understand that there will be some things that are unpredictable that you can't plan for, but nevertheless, if you have a dream, follow it, act on it. Don't make it just this thing that floats out there, but bring it to life and do what you're passionate about.
That's awesome. You guys you're two to watch. I know it, because I didn't have any idea. I'm not going to let you. You got your question. Go ahead.
Yay! One of our subscribers.
It's huge.
And we just met her. I swear we did not pay her to say that. We just met her and we were so excited.
We went to graduate school together, so we saw each other 20 years ago, but she had found a post I did on LinkedIn about this meetup. So thank you so much for coming.
That's cool.
Sounds like that might be your next growth partner right there, right? That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this tonight. I so appreciate that you guys stepped up second time around for doing these interviews. So I hope you'll come back to others as well and share keep telling your story as well and letting us know how it's going. So
Well, and now that we're not going to be working full-time and startup full-time, then we'll have more time.
Yeah.
that's awesome. Awesome. Well, I hope so. And there's a lot going on in the Valley. I also like to talk about that. I go to a lot of the tech meetups as well. I'm actually trying to immerse myself into some of the tech hubs, and this is a huge place right here at Galvanize for that. So you should take some time and come to a tour here. There's a lot to see. You're seeing the amphitheater, but there is a lot else that goes on here. Lots of tech companies that work out of here, upstairs and downstairs. Huge university where they do a lot of teaching. Women Who Start Up get a 50% discount on some of the courses. So if you have any questions on that, and again, app.womenwhostartup, if you're interested, do it before May 30th and get on board. You'll at least know one person, myself, actually two, Christina and I, for the Arizona division. We haven't got anybody else on the app yet because it was actually in beta. But I finally asked, I said, look, it's my birthday month. I want a celebration. I want to offer this to Women Who Start Up. So Lizelle's let me do that. So I'm going to reach out individually to each woman who has signed up so far, let them know about it so they don't miss the opportunity. But there's a lot of more growth to happen with this community. And I'm super glad that you're involved in it now. And you're entrepreneuring innovative women, and you're 6 days away from stepping out. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Really happy for you. Good job.